And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I am talking with Chris Thyberg. And Chris, first of all, thank you for being my guest today.
It's a pleasure, Michael. I've really enjoyed our initial conversation, getting to know each other, and I think we will have a lot of fun today.
I think we will, and this will be funny because I put underneath Chris's name. So on Chris's website, which we'll tell you how to get there in a little bit, he has a quote from Robert Greenleaf. And Robert Greenleaf wrote a book on servant leadership, and that I read back in the early '90s. And Chris, when I was introducing you, I was saying I'm Michael DeLon, and I'm here today with, and I looked at Robert Greenleaf, and I'm like, no, I'm not here with Robert. I'm here with Chris Thyberg. So I got to be careful on what I do, but if any of you know Robert Greenleaf and his work around servant leadership, that's really what Chris's heart is and what we're going to be talking about today. Because Chris's company is the Serving Way, and he really helps people understand and the inner game of leadership, and that's what I want to talk about. So, Chris, tell me, I mean, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Well, since we brought Robert Greenleaf into the room, let's pick up there.
Okay.
And I'll come at it a little sideways. It's usually how I approach life
Love it.
clients. But I came to this place during a 35-year career, moving up the ranks of leadership, first in higher education, Carnegie Mellon, Penn State, and then in an ecumenical faith-based educational global nonprofit founded in 1816. So a storied, historic organization. And I always noticed, Michael, the leaders who, when they exercised their rightful authority, their proper power, the responsibilities they really did hold for the stakeholders served by that enterprise, I noticed which leaders caused me to sit up a little straighter. My shoulders were a little broader. And when a hard assignment came up, I raised my hand. I'll do that one. Mm-hmm. I know I don't know what I'm doing. I know I don't have the expertise yet. I know I don't have all the skills. In other words, I don't have the outer game of leadership. Mm-hmm. The behaviors, the competencies. Think of an iceberg. I know I didn't have all the stuff above the waterline yet that people would point to and say, oh, Chris got this.
Right.
But they let me know that they were going to exercise that power with me and for me and through me. And here's the big thing. They were not afraid that my power would grow in me.
Yes.
Wow. And now we're talking the inner game of what's below the waterline, the place of capacities, of deep creativity, deep generativity, the be able to generate new things, especially in our complex whitewater conditions of leadership that we're all facing. Leadership is not planning to sail down the East Coast and across the Panama Canal and up the West Coast. This is class 5 rapids, friends. Let's just say it out loud. Now, that thing about capacities, that's much more, well, let me back up. The outer game are things like, how do I show up? What do I say? What do I write? What do I do? How do I behave? What are the shape of the decisions that I make that affect so many people? The inner game is, how do I make meaning of the world? How do I ask myself the hard question, Chris, how might you be wrong about the things you know you're right about?
Yeah.
Chris, can you take really honest, hard feedback that causes you maybe sometimes to even question the whole identity you've built? For example, I'll be honest, from a really good student and then a grad student at one of the best philosophy programs in the country, I built an identity about being the smartest guy in every room I was in.
Oh,
It's what it was to be a leader. Be smart, have the right answers. And then I realized if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
absolutely.
I need to be in a room with a lot of smarter people than me and serve their greatness, serve their creativity. That inner game of me, how I move through the world, how I lead myself first, because no one should follow you if you can't lead you.
Right.
And then lead from within. That inner game.
Yeah.
The inner always drives the outer.
Yeah.
But so many times, like the iceberg, the inner is invisible.
Yeah.
That's where I come in with the serving way after that career in higher education and that big international nonprofit space. I moved on the other side of what is it like to develop leaders. So Robert Greenleaf showed up in my life in the early mid 90s with a book called The Servant as Leader. And it blew my mind. He didn't say the leader as servant. He said the servant as leader. And he said, the heart of the leader is to serve first.
Yeah.
And the true test of a servant leader is, he didn't say, look at the leader. He didn't say, here's a checklist of competencies. He said, look at the people who follow. Yeah. Are they growing in their freedom, their health, their wisdom, their integrity, their strength to serve purposes greater than themselves and become servant leaders themselves?
Wow.
So I realized I wanted to pivot from I've been a leader, I've grown, I've become a leader of leaders, I've lived right below the C-suite. And now life opened up for me. I get to pivot and work with leaders on doing that inside out change, the kind of change that sticks. And so when people come and say, I need a behavior hack to do this, this, and this to get that performance review up there, I say, absolutely, absolutely. Coaching is an outcomes-based service. You've got stakeholders, you're paying real money. They want to see excellence that matters in your competencies. But we'll just be sticking Band-Aids on things, a different metaphor. We'll be gluing plastic fruit to dead branches until we get to the root system.
Absolutely.
And when we go down into the root system of who you are as a leader and why you want to lead at all, and how you've crafted an identity, maybe since you were a 5, that you need to be a people pleaser, that you need to be a fixer and a rescuer, or for me, the smartest kid.
Yeah.
Well, now we look up and say, man, that story just don't work. I'm actually getting in my own way. And people's heads explode and they think, my gosh, all the things I just got promoted for, I just learned in my 360. That's everything my team hates about me.
Seriously.
And so we got to go down into the roots. But I say this, Michael, I never coach problems. I always coach people.
Yeah.
They are beautiful and individual and gifted and graced. And so I'm there to evoke what is already wonderful about them and help them draw it out. A consultant will come and say, I'll analyze it and I'll give you a solution and take your money. And then when it doesn't work, I'll come back and do it again and take your money again.
Right.
A coach is, I'm a lover of metaphors. Michael, you're already pregnant with the next great leader you are.
Wow.
It's your baby. I can't have it for you, but I'm a really good midwife.
That's great.
So let's journey together. And that's why the serving way is called it, because it is built on those principles. I will say this too. Sometimes servant leadership and serving gets a really bad rap. That it's soft, that it's weak, that it's people pleasing. That's all about, hey, let's sing Kumbaya. It's all about relationships, not results. I'll take care of you. That's not serving.
Yeah.
That's parenting. That's
Mm-hmm.
bad parenting. It's like treating you as a child under the guise of, I will serve you, I will bubble wrap you. But that's actually serving me
Right.
and my ego.
Yeah.
A real serving leader says, we're in the white waters. We may have layoffs. We may have to pivot our business really hard to survive. And we might not get out of this altogether.
Right.
But I'm going out front. We're going together. And even though we might not even know all the right questions, much less the right answers, this African proverb, when the way is smooth in the daylight, I, as your leader, will be behind us carrying the bags.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's dark and dangerous at night, I will be out front with a torch.
Yeah.
So actually, to serve wisely and well takes tremendous courage. It takes vision. It takes being undeterred. It takes being deeply resilient, deeply present, agile, nimble, and above all, really humble.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think I'll pause there. You hit the play button, and I went, and
I
there.
like it.
Let's take a pause.
And we can go in lots of areas. So not only Greenleaf, Covey, a lot of what Covey talked about in Seven Habits dealt with a lot of this, but really the one that struck me when you were talking about servant leadership and knowing who you are at your core, right, is going back to John in the Gospels, John 13 with Jesus at the Last Supper. Everybody says, well, yeah, he washed the disciples' feet. And he did. But right before that, it says Jesus, knowing who he was and where he was going, went and served their feet. Because I don't know that he could have served them like that had he not done the inner game of leadership, right? He was comfortable and confident in who he was, which allowed him to serve, to prepare his followers of how they were going to serve in the future when he was gone. And I think that's for me the great metaphor, the great picture of how do we need to show up every day authentically. And if our identity is not solid, then we're not going to be a great leader. Is that fair?
Yes, that is so brilliant and so helpful. It's another way of saying that the self-serving leader creates dependencies. It looks like I'm serving you, but I'm creating a dependency on me.
Yeah.
And that's ego. What you said about Jesus preparing his followers to carry on the work and be his hands and feet and life for the life of the world. A great serving leader is always, how will I leave this team better when I leave? How will I leave the company I created better with a legacy when I pass it on? How do I, in essence, work myself out of my job?
Yes.
And if you're moving up the ranks, here's the thing. The best strategy is be so excellent at what you do that someone else can do it better, so that you can now do new things that only you are called to do. And the CEO needs to remember, it's such a trap that the owner, the C-suite, they keep doing jobs that are other people's jobs. Why? To avoid the hard jobs that are only their jobs. And why that? Because whitewater is scary. And it takes that inner thing, again, the resilience, the courage, the compassion, the humility to sit with the hard stuff.
Right. Very much.
And hand over to people, hey, I'm moving on, but you got this. You are going to do even better. I'm going to come back in 5 years and say, wow, is this place even more fantastic than anything I dreamed of?
Yeah, and a great leader, and I just wrote down in my notes, a great leader works for, and I'm phrasing it this way, right? The applause of heaven, not man. And I
Yes.
was at a coaching event this last week, and one of the leaders, he got four or five businesses, and he's like, I used to think that leadership was me getting all the applause and, oh, look at you, you're so good. And he's like, I realized that when I empowered my team and my teammates got the applause, I actually received the applause as well. It just wasn't right. And I thought that was so well put.
Yes.
And I think that's what I'm discerning. That's what you help people do is to anchor themselves to tighten up who they are, the being,
Yes.
instead of the doing.
Exactly right.
Right. And so let me ask you that. What's one of the questions or concerns that somebody has before they come to you, right? What's going on in their world? What are they hitting? What are they struggling with that they're like, something's not right? What's going on in their heart?
Yes. Well, it's different for every person, but there are common themes. I think I might wrap it up, put a bow around all of it, of saying they realize they are at a growing edge where what has gotten them to this point is not going to get them to where they need to be. That's Marshall Goldsmith. What got you here won't get you there.
Mm-hmm.
They're at what I call a growing edge.
Right.
And the growing edge, if you will, imagine the water line.
Yeah.
The growing edge is all that stuff above the water line. I'm actually getting in my own way.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be something more, something deeper, a different metaphor. They come in thinking perhaps I need more apps on my leadership platform. Chris,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Help me fake being authentic.
Exactly.
I just need, right? I just need to know that. And we say, oh, well, not so much. But when we come to that point of looking again within and saying, yes, Chris is with me on the apps upgrading, but you know what? I need an operating system upgrade. I need to change the platform. And now we'll throw out a bunch of stuff that just doesn't help anymore, and we can upgrade and we can add new things. But again, that's the kind of change that sticks. It's the inside out work.
Yeah.
Another hook, if people know this, is Jim Collins in Good to Great, talks about level 5 leadership. And that's right alongside servant leadership or leadership that stewards. That's another really good biblical word.
Right.
A leader as steward,
Yeah.
not owner.
Right.
Steward of resources, time, money, people, the environment, communities, multiple stakeholders, steward of all that. And so Jim Collins puts it this way. He says, that level 5 leader, when we succeed, everyone did it.
Yeah.
When it goes south, I did it.
Yeah.
That's serving.
That is serving. And that's it's funny because servant leadership, right? Matthew 25 is one of my favorite passages of the parables of the talents. One guy gets 5, one guy gets 2, one guy gets 1, right? And at the end of the day, the master comes back on the first 2, bring them back what they did with the money or the resources or whatever they gave, they received. And the master says, well done, good and faithful servant, right?
Yeah.
And then he says, enter into your master's glory and let's go do some more stuff. And I've told people this for years. I am living for that well done from my master. That's what I'm living for. But those servants, I don't think they got more money. I don't think they got a lot, but they got the well done from the master, and they got more responsibility to go do more things that they were equipped to do. They thrived, but they weren't working for the money.
Yeah.
Working for the master to serve and to look at the master, and the master goes, well done. That was their reward because they used what was inside of them to make it happen. I love that whole picture of what you're talking about.
They were entrusted with more resources.
Yes.
Not just maybe a bigger paycheck and a title, more resources, more responsibility, more rightful authority, more proper power.
Yes.
That's what the reward was. to come in and say, enter my work, advance my kingdom, make shalom happen. Dudes, we're going to give you more to bring that about.
Right.
Now, I don't want to be too general about a growing edge. So a particular one is people say, I need more leadership presence.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately ask, what does presence mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see it? Where do you respect it? Where has it served you? And then they quickly say, oh man, yeah, the large and in charge kind of thing of presence. Nah, that's not it. And then we get really quickly to, well, if you want to have presence, how present
Yes.
are you?
Yes.
First to yourself, when you're sitting in that meeting and you want to have influence presence, whether the top or the middle or the bottom, I believe in 360 degrees of influence. I work with many aspiring leaders who are as much great followers as they are great leaders.
Absolutely.
And I will say the leader at the top, as we are saying, always follow something.
Yes.
What is it going to be? The higher purpose, the Lord,
Yep.
shalom, flourishing, or ...
Yeah.
So, are you actually present? Are you there for people? Are you authentic and centered and available? Because, and that starts in you. Sometimes I help leaders say, okay, you're about to be in that meeting and you're going to do that same dumb thing you always do because it's a conditioned habit. It's driven out of fear. Can you actually tone down the anxiety by finding your feet?
Yeah.
Find your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Find where the chair supports your body.
Mm-hmm.
Find yourself. Take the pause. Take the breath.
Yeah.
And now, from that being present to yourself, be present on all channels to those people in their beauty. Are you listening on all channels? What's said? What's not said? What's the emotional vibe here? What's the body language here? And what are you putting out there? Because all this stuff is contagious. If you put it out there, everyone else is going to catch it.
Right.
So, that's a big one. I want greater leadership presence. I want more influence, up, down, sideways, diagonally. And maybe the third one is I always say, I really want to do this, Chris. I'm committed to doing this. Absolutely going to do this. I know I need to do this. And we look up and the question is, so why aren't you doing it? And sometimes there are important reasons, like neurodiverse people and ADHD. I mean, they have some wiring that's hard to actually follow through and do and have that high executive function. But let's put that aside for a minute. In so many cases, it just takes that tough love as a coach to say, well, if you were really serious about doing it, you'd be doing it. So maybe you're not. But that's not blame, because here's what comes up, Michael. It's called immunity to change. Everyone has it. And what it is we have all these commitments above the waterline.
Mm-hmm.
But below the waterline, often below consciousness, we have other commitments that are pulling against them. Like, I want to be a strong leader and take risks. I'm committed. Chris, going to do that. And we pull back and look down, said, but I really need to be liked.
Right. Which is,
and I have a bigger commitment to being liked than being a serving leader who makes the tough calls. Well, wow. Now that you know, maybe you have now a false dichotomy. Right. Either you can lead wisely and well or be liked.
Yeah.
What if that's not an either or?
Right.
What if there's a both and, where you can be deeply respected and admired and appreciated and loved because you lead with courage from the inside out?
Mm-hmm.
What if you flipped that script?
Mm-hmm.
Now these two competing commitments fuse, and they become a new third thing. that is suddenly people go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
everything is opened. I never saw it that way. And that is what it is like to coach the person, not the problematic behavior.
Right. That's awesome. I love that. Because once you get that aha, that changes everything. It gives you a whole new perspective, a whole new vista of life to go, wow, right? Because you're dealing with inside work, and it's transformative in so many ways. And you and I, we could talk for a long time about this because there's so many areas that we can go to, but it just goes back to fundamentals. But it's finding somebody like you, Chris, who actually understands this, because I love that you're not bringing to people some program or off the shelf thing or something. No, 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 no. Let's talk about you. What's going on with you? Yeah, we can get you all that, whatever. I can help you grow and become a better leader, and that may be the pathway you're on. But if you don't own the inside, if you don't fix, hate that word, the inside, if you don't come to grips with who you are, how you're made,
Yeah.
what you should be doing that
Yeah.
fuels you, you're going to be struggling all your life. And that's why having a coach like Chris is so important, because you can just hear from this conversation, dude, just the question, just the perspective you have, the angle, the side door that you come at it from is so refreshing, so different. And it's going to allow people to show up authentically. I love that word that you used.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. How do people get a hold of you? How do they find out more about the
Okay.
serving way and potentially working with you, but just discovering it? Because this is a it's not a new learning. It's been around for years, but the way you approach it, your heart behind it is different and unique, and I love that. How do people find you?
Okay. I will give that in just a second. I think I want to put a little capstone so that people can, as they come to the website, my LinkedIn, my Calendly page, this is what I want you to see. I want you to see yourself.
Mm.
I don't want you to look at me. When you come there, I want you to see, oh, I don't know how, but Chris gets it. He gets me. And that's because in my person, but also in my training at Georgetown, a good Jesuit institution where I did my coaching certifications, it was all about the whole person. So
Mhm.
I'm there with you, client, in my whole person, my head, my thinking, my heart, my emotions, my body, my sensing, my spirit, my soul, my values, my purpose, my meaning. And I'm even with you in my identity, in the sense that I have a story. I'm here with a history.
Mhm.
And I can't assume from where I sit in all of me, head, heart, body, soul, identity, that I know who you are.
Mhm.
I'm inviting you, Michael, show up in your whole self,
Mhm.
your head, your heart, your body, your spirit, and your unique story, your unique path to how you got to be who you are right now. So I wanted to say it that way so that when you get there, hold me accountable.
Mhm.
Look at the website, theservingway.com,
Mhm.
and see if you have that experience. And if you kind of do, I'd love to hear. And if you don't quite, I'd love to hear that too.
Yeah.
The LinkedIn profile is under my name, Chris Thyberg. Look there. At Calendly, and I know you'll have all these links. At Calendly, it's under the underscore serving underscore way at calendly.com. And I will say this, when you go to Calendly and book a time with me, it will be the most unsale sales call you have ever had, because you will have a taste of coaching.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it. People don't know what they're buying when they're buying coaching. It's kind of a mystery. Is it consulting? Is it mentoring? Is it, well, what is it? It and so this conversation will be mostly you sharing where you are, how you got here, where do you want to be? And the biggest thing, why is it important to you?
Very
What
much.
matters? And if you had what you think you want now, what matters next? Like, what's the thing after the thing?
Right.
Because we want that longer view, that deeper look. And so this conversation will be all about you. Periodically, I'll just say, hey, Michael, I want to pause for a second and say, did you notice we're having coaching now? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think about this? Because it's all about fit. It's all
Yeah.
about trust. It's all about the bond, the relationship as we co-create this work.
Yeah.
We build the container together in which you grow and flourish and mature and then bring that greatness up and out of yourself and out and into the world.
All right. I'm just going to invite my audience to pause, rewind for about 5 minutes, and listen to that one more time because Chris just said it. I'm not even going to say anything, but thank you for being here because that was amazing. That's exactly what people are longing for. If you want to be heard and understood and then find help to develop the inner game of leadership, may I implore you to reach out to Chris Thyberg, theservingway.com. Have that conversation. I'm done. Chris, thank you for who you are, how you show up, and for being my guest today.
Well, thank you for the invitation, for wonderful questions, for creating the spiritual space here where we can talk about, I think, the source of life in every human being. And may our leadership be for the sake of flourishing life, shalom, beauty, goodness, truthfulness, and a blessing for the whole world.
Amen and amen. Thanks for listening today. Tune in again next week for another great episode. Take care. God bless.